Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be listening, joining in, streaming. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, my hair's gotta fix it. Looks like it was like sticking out. Okay, there we go. Um, welcome in. This is the Future of Follow-Up with me, your host, Sara Delansig, and my co-host, Heather Murcin, which says Heather Grace today, but
That is weird. Yeah, we have to fix that.
but she is with Ravelworks Assist. If you're looking for a traditional ISA that does cold calls and all that kind of good stuff, you should hit her up. Or even admin work and that sort of thing. You can go to ravelworksassist.com. Check her out. And I am with the Inside Sales Agency. We are a boutique ISA company. And you can go to theinsidesalesagency.com if you want to see what we do, which is a little bit more like um
Bougie.
niche video. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a potential new client, and he used to be in Hollywood, and he's doing like high level like Hollywood films for his walkthroughs, and like trying to attract all the people that like lost their homes in the Hollywood area to move to his area, which isn't too far. But I was like, ooh, sounds right up my alley.
Fancy.
Yeah, luxury. So today, this podcast topic was inspired by a real life situation, which most of the time it is. Um, so I work for many different high level teams and that sort of thing. And sometimes the agents on the teams come to me for advice on follow up and that sort of thing. And then sometimes the team leaders will, let me know what they think as well. But I had someone reach out, and they basically are only able to like convert hot leads, like pretty much, the low hanging fruit. Let's call it
Right.
that. All right, the low hanging fruit. And so I have taught. I kind of stole Layla Hermosi's thing about like you need to have consistency, and then consistency will give you competence. And when you have competence, then you gain confidence. So I always tell the story that, like, when I first started making phone calls for selling real estate coaching, which was like the first time I ever really made calls for a living or anything like that. And the first week, I did not want to do it. I asked to be moved into the admin area because that was where I was more comfortable. And the place that hired me, they were going and putting on an event. And so they were like, wait until we get back from this event, which was a whole thing because they were gearing up for it. And then they were there for a week, and then they had to like kind of, let things calm down once they unpacked and did everything. So this took about 3 weeks. And by the time they got back, I pretty much ran the sales team and totally like fell into my flow state and found that that sales was way more fun, and you could make more money and work less hours, which I am a huge proponent of. So by the time they got back and they
Yeah.
were like, okay, now you can move into admin, I was like, never mind, I am good. And they didn't want me to at that point anyway, honestly, um because I started crushing it for their sales team and became the team leader and all of that. But the very first few times that I made the calls, right? Like I was legitimately reading off of a piece of paper to say the script for, hi, we have a really exciting real estate event coming up in your area. Would you like more information about that? And then, and I would call real estate agents. And then once they would say, oh, yeah, send me an email about it, then I would offer them a free coaching call with one of the speakers or something like that, which worked really well, just saying. Um, and, but I was so like, ick when they were like, okay, now you got to offer the free coaching call, right? Like I was like, oh man, that feels so awkward. Like, no, I don't want to do that. But hearing them do it and having success, and then like trying it and having success myself, because people like, I don't know about y'all, but if you are in the real estate industry right now and you are doing well, then you should give yourself a round of applause, because I really think that this is our like what is that called? Like when it, like the quell, like it's getting rid of all the agents that can't hang. You know what I mean? I don't know if
Yeah,
that's the
this is
word.
like the hardest I think I've ever seen it. Like through all of my time doing this is the hardest, hands down.
Yeah, and so I was in not real estate, but like I was in the land surveying world during the 2008, 2010 era, and yeah, purging. Thank you, Debbie. That's exactly what I was thinking of, the word purging. Yeah, purging the people that don't really work out. But yeah, I was in the land surveying industry, and it was a family-owned business, and my husband and I both worked there. We just had our son in 2008. Yeah, 2000. Nope, 2007, sorry. And we all got laid off, and it was the whole thing because like just everything kind of shut down and houses weren't being built anymore and all this stuff. So I saw that, and that was from a different perspective. So I know that that was difficult for a lot of people too, and I would say that that kind of comes around. Maybe it comes around like once every 7 years that we have to have this like influx of, you know, difficulty so that we can learn from it. Which is funny because I'm actually teaching about like how to get I've done another podcast about that, like embracing difficulty. But this is actually what we are talking about today too, is how because if you don't have the reps, then you're not going to be able to handle the calls that are a little more complicated, the people that need nurtured a little bit more long term, that sort of thing. So let me ask you this, Heather. When you first started making calls, was it just you just slipped right into it, or was it the hardest the first time you did it?
So I came from collections.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
Well, let's
was like
start there though, because that would be very hard too, right?
yeah, I don't know. I feel like right from the jump, I didn't like the scripting. Like when they
Mm,
were like, if they say this, you say this. Like I'm like, how can you possibly like in my little like 17-year-old brain, I was like, how can you possibly have a conversation with somebody if you're thinking about what you're gonna say next? How can you hear them? Right?
100%. Yeah.
And I would get yelled at because they were like the people that were like over my shoulders were like, you, if they say this, you say this, you didn't say this. And I'm like, okay, but I still got the job done. Like we're still in a
Yeah.
repayment plan, like, you know?
Yeah.
And I quickly became one of the top collectors because I knew how to listen to people and I knew how to anticipate their needs. And one of the things that I learned really early was what can you do for me, right? When you have somebody on the phone and you're trying to get them to hear you, they're already thinking, what's in this for me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to let them know what's in it for them right up front and then get whatever it is you want from them. So right
Yeah.
from the jump, I had that already instilled in me. And so for me, I mean, these calls are cake.
Compared to that. But like the
Compared
very
to
first calls, yeah. But so that's interesting because I was the same way. I could only do the first line of the quote unquote script. I'm not following if they say this, then you say that. And that's exactly why I rose to the top as well, because I wasn't treating it like a number or like a sale. I was treating these agents like people who needed
people. Yep,
coaching, and you were treating people in collections like people who needed some help getting a payment plan, which,
exactly.
you know, when you have
Hmm.
somebody that's nice and that's not treating you like, "Ugh, why don't you pay your bills? Like, what's your problem?"
Well,
That's
and
probably
like
part of it too.
well, yeah, exactly. And like for me, I would always be like, listen, you can keep ignoring this and you can keep pretending it's not a problem, but or we have solutions that will help you in the long term. Like it's gonna suck in the short term, but in the
Yeah.
long term, you're gonna have this, and this, and this, right? And a lot of people, especially with collections, run because they don't know what to do, right? They get overwhelmed, and it's the same exact concept, right?
Yeah.
The people that want to sell their house or they want to buy, they run and they dodge our calls because they get overwhelmed. And it's that
Yep.
same psychological feeling. And so when
Yeah.
you have somebody who's pushing back, it's not because they don't want the end goal. They would have never clicked on the ad if they weren't interested in something, or they wouldn't
Yeah.
have ever done whatever. You would have had no idea this person existed if they
Yep.
didn't want your help in some capacity, right? And so
Uh,
remembering that they reached out to you or, they raised their hand or whatever system you have.
Yeah.
And even in a cold call, if they said, sure, what's up, or let you continue, there's some sort of curiosity there.
They're like, what's this about? Yeah. What's in it for me? I
Exactly.
love that. So yeah, so a lot of agents, they think that they might have a confidence problem, which was the case with this agent that reached out to me, right? Like he's like, how do you get confident in what you're doing? And for me, it's really a repetition problem. Like these agents don't have the reps in doing the harder things so that the it makes it easier for them. And so you have to be consistent with what you're doing, however you're doing it. And I'm not saying it has to be phone calls, but this is just what Heather and I know, so this is what we're gonna talk about. But and this was the situation with this agent that reached out to me that was like, I only can really talk to people that are really ready to transact, and I don't know what to do after that. Like, I don't know how to handle it if they're like, nah, we're gonna wait. And then I have another agent, um, total different end of the spectrum. Like I procured this, buyer in 2024 for this agent, and they just closed the other day. And that was 2 years. Okay.
That's
two
it?
years.
That's all it took?
I know, right? And and they were like, "Oh, you know what? We ended up we're going to do this or we're going to do that." And then they would come back around because that agent made an impact and made an effort, and they would always come back to that agent, or that agent was, on top of it enough to make sure that they became, top of mind again when it was around the time that that person might be considering looking again. So that is what I want to talk about is how to have, so the topic, if I haven't said it, is consistency to confidence and how you get there, okay? So confidence isn't something that you can just magically unlock, okay? It's built through exposure, repetition, discomfort, and competence. So once you have your consistency with doing something, and you're only ever going to be the worst at something the very first time you try it. Like, think of exercise. I remember I used to like do rope climbing, which is like circus delay stuff. And my sister invited me to do this, and I was like, really? I hadn't done any kind of gymnastics since I was very young. And I was like, I probably won't even be able to pull myself up. So the whole class is climbing a rope, like climbing a rope and doing flips and stuff on it. And so the very first class, I'm just trying to pull myself up this rope. And then it's like once a week too. So I'm like, this is never going to go anywhere. But I was just, hang out with my sister. It's cool. So then the second time, I can actually pull myself up the rope. I was shocked. I somehow built some muscles in these little noodle arms, and I could pull myself up. By the third time, I could do some of the little tricks, and like by the fourth time, I was literally doing flips on that thing. Like, and I was ready to like, I felt so confident. I could have climbed like 20 feet up that rope. Like, no joke. It was amazing. Obviously, they gave you the tools, but it really is about the reps. It's about just putting one foot in front of the other, or one arm in front of the other, or one call in front of the other, or one text, or whatever the case may be, and just putting that in the work into it. So when people ask me, how did you become so good at this? Or how did you do that? Yes, there is some level of like, I'm a human and I'll talk to people like a human, but everybody can do that if you're not trying to sell, if you're not coming from a place of desperation, if you treat them like you would treat a friend, then you can be that person too, and you can have those kind of conversations that Heather and I have. And you just need to have, you know, a few reps, a few one after the other, and then you become competent, and that is where the confidence comes from, okay? So usually, let's see, something that's misunderstood about confidence is that most people think that confident people take action. Now, confident people, they actually did the action first. It wasn't because they felt confident in what they were doing. They became confident because they took repeated action. So if I haven't hammered that home yet, hopefully that dials that in. All right. So just think about like if you're an agent listening to this right now, think about your first listing appointment and what that was like. Like how did that go versus now where you are today, Like hopefully you're much more competent and or confident in your listing presentation and the way that you do it and all of that stuff. And if you aren't, there are some great resources out there that you can find that can help you with that as well. Okay, so what I want to say is that hot leads can create a weakness in agents. Because if they're just getting hot leads, if they're only getting that low hanging fruit, then they're not, creates a type of dependency. They're not going through the difficult stuff to learn how to handle it. And it's just like that first week that I made phone calls. If I didn't go through that hard time, I wouldn't have come out the other side and thought, oh, this is actually way more lucrative. I can work 4 to 6 hours and make twice as 3 times as much money because it's commission based rather than go and work 8+ hours sitting at a desk, punching numbers or like checking the list off, right? So making a few calls for 4 hours made me a lot more money and I could work less and I love that. So some of the skills, okay, skills that agents might skip is like they don't know how to build rapport quickly or they don't know how to handle rejection. Um, and they don't have or emotional resilience. These are things that people should work on. It's actually something, the emotional resilience I I learned as a team leader that you have to have that and you cannot like freak out in front of your team. I've had some issues lately like where things like if I wasn't in the room with my team, I could under the surface, I'm freaking out because maybe somebody didn't pay me or somebody has gone MIA that should be paying me. Things like that nature. um, but you have to have emotional resilience in front of your team and you have to have emotional resilience on these calls. And if somebody screams at you or anything like that, you got to have it. You got to have the ability to nurture the potential buyer or seller like I was talking about the lady that we did this for 2 years, you know, and that was when I first started with the team. So it was like right when I got it. You got to ask better questions and you can learn the psychology behind things. I mean, I'm a psych major and most of this like comes a little bit naturally to me by just like, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to manipulate anyone into anything, you know what I mean? But there are ways and programs out there, like Heather, you've been a part of some programs that help you know how to say things and like, you know, the timing. And I think your ISAs do that too. They go through training like that as well. Yeah. Yeah. You're muted, but
Sorry, my son decided to wake up and he doesn't feel good, so he was crying.
oh, I hope he
Hmm.
feels better. Well, we
He's,
can.
no, you're good.
Okay.
Not a big
All right.
sister.
Well, yeah. So there's also like staying consistent without any instant reward, but like I've talked about how to give yourself rewards in another podcast at another time, which is like how to make follow-up fun. So you can, put that into YouTube with my name and it'll come up. One of more popular videos, which also I'm excited to use the bingo. My new ISA watched that video and she's like, I want to play the bingo.
I
I'm
was
like,
wondering if you guys were gonna do that. We started that. We've started to do it monthly now. So
yes.
mhm.
So are you blacking out the whole thing or what?
No, so we all have a card and basically everybody loads up their stamps. Like we have a thing that stamps them and
Uh-huh.
they load up their stamps every night so we can see where we're at and who's in the winning and stuff like that. So it makes it kind of
That's
fun.
so fun. Yeah, see, it's super fun. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. It really like kind of lets the pressure off. Once you get hung up on, you're kind of like, yay, got that one out of the way, like now I got that.
Except for when it happens again, you're like, I already got hung up on, bruh. I don't need that one. Can't you be
Yeah,
a jerk
I
off?
know. I try to like make that stuff fun whenever somebody is like totally rude or something like that. Like kind of just, make a little laughter out of it instead of like make it a negative thing. Like, oh, like I'm not gonna be like, oh, how dare they? You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, I guess you're having a bad day. Okay, not today. Understood. Moving on. All right. So how do we get from consistency to competence to confidence? Doing the reps. Bottom line. All right, we're done here. No, I'm just kidding. All right, you got to do the reps. You got to do the calls. Okay. If you are uncomfortable making some calls, then start out with one. Okay. Just put one on your agenda. Be like, I need to call that person that I showed a house to last week that I haven't heard from and isn't responding to my text messages. So I'm going to call them and I'm going to see what what happens. And maybe you get their voicemail, which I found out some people would like, some people are more nervous with voicemail than they are with like talking to a person. At least my new ISA is. I was like, you would rather talk to them than get the voicemail. She was
That's
like,
wild. No,
I know.
it's funny because when I first started, um, I would be like, "Oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want them to think I'm annoying them." Like they said they would call me on such and such a date, and like if they didn't call me, it's for a reason. Now I'm like, now I get not, I don't want to say angry because that's not the right word, but like I'm like, why didn't you call me? Like, where are you? What's wrong? Like, you know, like when you expect an agent to follow with you and they don't, or they don't answer your calls, you're like, where did you go?
Yeah.
It no longer is like I'm annoying you so much as like I need to know what happened. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of come like that's how you would treat somebody that's your friend too. Like you got to have boundaries, obviously, but like if you feel like you've built that rapport, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that
Mhm.
it can maybe even ease some of their, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll tell you.
Mhm.
If somebody's ghosting me, I'll be like, just let me know that you're not in a ditch somewhere. You know what I mean? I have
Yep.
that situation right now. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I know. know. Okay. So you got to do the reps. You got to do the calls, the follow up, the conversations. Try to get on those conversations, right? If you are calling and nobody is picking up, first of all, let's look at your mindset. Are you sitting there hoping that no one picks up? Are you calling at a time of day that nobody's going to pick up? There are certain times of the day that people don't pick up the phone, like 8 a.m. to like, I don't know, 11 isn't the greatest time to call, depending on, I personally don't call it. Well, what do you think, Heather? Do you think that it's
I think
good?
it depends on the area. Like 8 a.m. to 11 is gold mine for Florida because all those old people,
Oh,
they
well,
be answering the phone in the morning.
that is a totally different. Yes, you have to think about the area that you're calling and the demographic. Because yes, the people that are retired, that's a totally
Yep.
different.
They don't
Yeah,
like calls at night.
it's very true. So I have like this sweet spot, and so I always start my calls when I start at 8 a.m. I start them on the East Coast, so it's really 11 over there. And then yeah, so I pretty much
Oh,
don't
I
call
see. Yeah,
between
yeah,
8
yeah.
to 11 anywhere because it's always on the East Coast and then working my way to the West Coast, and then it's about 2, maybe 2 to 5 that I'm calling those people. Now, I usually will try to get them on a lunch break or something along those lines, but you have, like not everybody works 8 to 5. Agents don't work 8 to 5. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
I would
people out there,
say that
but
most people nowadays don't work 8 to 5. Like that 8 to 5 mindset is like not a thing in this generation. Like everybody's got side hustles or, like
true.
17 different jobs that they're working all at once. Like, so I don't know. I feel like that's kind of, like the evolving thing. Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's like who doesn't pick up their phone, you know? Like
Well, I
when
mean, a
do you
lot
work
of
and you
people
can't
want
pick
to
up your
people, yeah, yes. Okay. I was
phone?
gonna go down a different tangent, but I'm not gonna. But that's why I love the text message because honestly, especially with my generation, we grew up on text. It's like
Yeah,
the way to reach us. Like if you
a
try to call my
bazillion.
husband, it is not happening. Like he will ignore you, even if you're the doctor, okay? Which
He's like, text me, doc.
yeah, no,
What
he
do
tried. He tried.
I?
Talk wasn't happening either. But they finally, they finally got a hold of him. But
He's
I'm like,
broken.
yeah, yeah, but I am definitely about the text message because then it goes but there's sometimes people will still not listen to the voicemail and still not read the text that I just sent and still call back 5 minutes later and go, you called?
Listen.
Who
Uh-huh.
are you? Yeah. But I'm like, oh, if you would have listened to the voicemail I left and the text message I sent, I said exactly who I am. I don't say it that snarky, but I do say it sometimes. Okay, so even when things are awkward, right? Even when it is uncomfortable, even if you are having to read the first sentence to not trip up, or you need to have like a glass of water next to you because your mouth gets dry because you're so nervous, which used to be me. And today is the first time I didn't actually bring water for a podcast, and so far so good. So we're almost done, and I haven't needed it, so we're good. But usually my mouth gets really dry because I get nervous. But see, repetition. Oh my God, I just proved a point and I wasn't even trying to. Because I've done this so many times, now my mouth doesn't get super dry and I don't get as nervous. So there you go. Look at that.
Look
That's
at you
just me.
and you climbing up that rope and doing flips.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So once you start developing the skills, right? Like once you once you start doing these things, then you will start to recognize patterns, which I know, Heather, you are great at. You can anticipate their objections instead of have a little sheet that says when they say this, they say you say this. Then instead, you're just gonna know because you do it so many times. You're gonna know that almost every voicemail picks up on 32 seconds. Um, I think at least that's what I know.
Yep.
32-second
100%.
mark.
Yep.
Yeah. If it goes past 32 seconds, I give it till 45 and then I'm like, okay, this is probably a landline after that because it's not going to voicemail. All right. And then you will also improve your delivery, which is exactly what I did as well. And you'll be able to regulate your emotions faster because once you've been called nasty names and yelled at multiple times, you really do understand. It's nothing to do with you. That person's just having a bad day. Or like if they're like, I already told you, which happens on the very first time I've called some people. I already told you I didn't want any real estate. I'm like, okay, sir, this is the first time I've ever called you. But understood. Delete. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And you'll just adapt more naturally to everything. Okay, I saw that Debbie had mentioned something in here. Yeah, Debbie said guilty. I don't listen to voicemails. Yeah, I know. So I read now that the iPhone has this beautiful feature where you can watch when somebody's leaving you a voicemail and read the transcription live. So I had somebody actually calling me about ISA services yesterday, and I was reading it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, it's a real person and not a scammer." So then I picked up, and we had a wonderful call, and it went, great. But so I actually do watch and read my voicemail because it's transcribed. Maybe, maybe you need to set up that feature, Debbie. Okay, and then Heather, you said highly recommend visual voicemail. What do you mean by that?
So I'm if you have visual, most people have either premium visual voicemail or it's like a feature on your phone, but it'll just read your voicemail for you, so you don't have to actually listen to it. So it's like you're reading a
Okay,
text.
what I was
Yeah.
just saying. Okay, same thing. All right. So it must not just be an iPhone thing. You can read the voicemail and then
Yes.
no, and you can pick up. Can you pick up in the
Mhm.
middle of the person leaving the voicemail too?
So I don't know how I ever do it, but sometimes I do, and it always feels like an accident. But there is a way to do it.
Oh, okay, because like on an iPhone it says watch what they're saying, and then you can answer it, and that's what I did yesterday, so
Oh,
it
that's
worked out
dope.
nicely. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so once you have gotten some reps and you you start to feel a little bit more comfortable. I guess it would say like consistency equals comfort, which is competence and then confidence, I would say. Because you gotta get a little comfortable with what you're doing. A bunch of C's in this situation. Now your confidence will become steadier. You're gonna be less performative. You're not gonna need to talk so much. A lot of being an ISA is shutting up and just like knowing how to ask the right questions, knowing when to let them talk, you know, knowing how to direct the conversation because they might go off on a tangent about their ex and and how they moved from Texas to this area and how they hate the area and whatever. You got to be like, okay, great. Well, how many bedrooms do you think you need in the, or whatever? You got to direct it, right? Let's get back on track, but not insult you at the same time, right? And then once you get to that point, you can feel like I can actually handle this. Like, especially the more consistent you are, if you do it back to back and you put one foot in front of the other and all of that, then you're going to start to feel like, oh, okay, this isn't as scary. This isn't as intimidating. Like, if you have to do it and then you are seeing the results from it, and that's the exciting part. Like, it wasn't like I was like, yay, I get to go call people all day. And I love that. I love talking to people. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't talking to strangers isn't like my shtick here, right? Like I'm not like trying to do that. The goal is to try to help them with whatever they are looking for. And this is why I'm not a cold caller though, because cold calls is I send all my cold calls over to the lovely Heather. If you want a more traditional ISA, please reach out to Heather, not me.
I
I will
enjoy it.
say, I think there's a difference when you're calling for yourself versus how you guys are calling on behalf of someone else. I
Agreed.
think
know.
there's a psychological difference, and the fear isn't as great when you're calling on behalf of someone else. And then also, I found that I'm more inclined to make phone calls and go through all the things. Um, and I did this with a coach one time. They called it a Monday Madness or something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And everybody was on Zoom, everybody was muted, and everybody was making phone calls. And for some reason, that works for me for making
Ooh,
phone calls because for some reason, psychologically, it helps minimize that call reluctance, that
yeah,
fear. And so I'm able to have, I don't know if it's more confidence or I just feel like I'm not alone or I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it, but something about having that Zoom on, but still making the phone calls with everybody on mute helps reduce that. So if you're calling for yourself, I highly recommend getting with in just two or three people. You don't need a whole bunch.
yeah.
And it made a huge difference for me. Because
Oh,
I've been struggling with this for years.
I know. I know you brought that same thing up, like saying, "Oh, it's easier for us to call because we're not calling for ourselves." But I did call for myself as an agent when I first started. And I understand it is a little different. And I think there's certain avenues that you feel more comfortable with or not, but it really is about reps. And the reason that you feel more comfortable in a group is because you don't feel alone. You feel like, okay, this isn't weird that I'm the one calling when you might think, oh, most people have ISAs, but no, these are other agents doing the same thing. And most agents today are not hiring ISAs. Like if this was 2022, like most agents could afford an ISA and they were too busy and there's all these, you could just throw a stick and hit a buyer or seller. That's not the case nowadays. And so when you feel like you're in a group and you're all doing something together, then you don't feel as alone and you don't feel as weird and you don't feel awkward about it. And then there's also kind of, I mean, at least for me, you said that you couldn't hear each other, but like we would like type in the chat, like, oh, I just had a great call. And we would have sometimes share recordings or things of that nature too. Do you guys do that too, Debbie?
Yeah, we would
Mhm.
we would like if somebody booked an appointment or, got some kind of win to celebrate, we would or I got hung up on or I got told to F off or
Yeah.
what because we I've used the bingo card too. And
Yeah.
so if somebody's filled a diagonal line or a horizontal or vertical line or whatever, or I got hung up on 5 times in a row or whatever, like it's sharing those wins and turning those what can be perceived as negative, turning them
Hmm.
into positive because they're things that those so-called negatives have to happen in order to get the yes.
Absolutely. That's exactly, I think, the mindset that we try to instill in our ISAs and everything like that. It's like there's so many hangups to get to the big, closing, the big exciting appointment, the listing, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm looking for anticipating those listings and like wanting those, but I know that the hangups and the FUs and all those are going to come along the way too. But I
Yeah,
love that.
addressing the negativity, like just in conversations, when you address the elephant in the room before anybody else can be weird about it, it eliminates the tension, it eliminates the awkwardness. So when you're expecting to get told no, then it's a pleasant surprise when somebody actually is receptive and actually engages.
100%. Sometimes I would even start typing out not interested just based on the way that they answered the phone. And I have to backspace it. And I'm like, oh, no, okay, they are. You know what I mean? Like they start engaging and they're like, oh, sorry, and all of a sudden they like brighten up because people actually do appreciate when we follow up too. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people have this limiting belief that, oh, we're bothering people. Oh, it's not, comfortable, that sort of thing. But I personally think, I've run into so many times where like people are like, thank you so much for following up. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's not every single day, but it could be. Okay. So those are great. Okay, so if anybody wants to reach out to Debbie, she's got I'm like, she's no, I'm just kidding. But I actually
I
did
do
have.
a I do a power hour type situation like once a month. I try to at least for my group of agents that and it's only 3 or 4 of us that are on it, but we'll block 2 hours. Some people stay an hour, some people stay 30 minutes, however long. There's no set amount. One time we blocked 2 hours and we went four. I mean,
Oh,
and people
wow.
came and went because I was on a roll. I'm like, I'm not stopping. If you want to stay. And the other girl was like, can I address some of my direct mail envelopes? I'm like, absolutely. Just be on the Zoom
Yes. See,
because
and
it
that's
kept me
what,
going.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That was exactly how I also got, comfortable with what I was doing. The people around me were making calls and setting appointments, and I was hearing it, and I would take a little something, oh, that worked for that guy, and I would take it and I would try it the next time and I would put it in or anything like that, I think it's really good. That is awesome, Debbie, and I'm happy for you. Okay, we're running out of time. We are out of time. Okay, so
Okay.
don't measure your success only by closings. You need to measure it by reps, resilience, improvement, how you recover after a rejection. All right. So, any agents who want to become truly skilled and not just get that low hanging fruit in this business, they aren't the ones who started out confident. Okay. Because almost nobody starts out confident. They're the ones who just keep showing up long enough to become competent and eventually confident. All right. So confidence isn't the interest fee, it's the reward for staying in the game. You don't need more hype, you need more reps. And that is all I have for today. So find us on our socials if you have questions or anything like that. And until next time, bye.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.